The death threats have been unbelievable. The black notices coming in, threatening all of our team members. And if you don't pull the source code within 72 hours, you and your families are, terrible threats. Black notices coming to us and popping up on the screens across the board on both sides of the Atlantic. That's scary stuff when it happens, if you are predisposed to buying into that shit. So, this was happened a few months ago, 3 or 4 months ago. And, first thing my team are asking, well, what do we do? How should we handle this? And we're having like crisis meetings, like, oh my God, we're all being sent these black notices, and they're threatening basically that if we don't dismantle the entire system and pull the source codes, we are all in serious trouble. And the black helicopters are coming in to get us, and we're going to be locked up for life and or worse. And our families are being exposed also. Feverish meetings for 2 or 3 days. How do we address this stuff? And I said simply, all respond, go fuck yourself.
Hey guys, I wanted to tell you about this wonderful little company that I've come across recently. They're called Otter Spirit, and they're based out in Monterey in California. And basically, they source ethically sourced premium grade, double and AAA grade gemstones and crystals, like these ones. And their website is gorgeous. It's all, the branding is beautiful. But what really got me was their dedication, and this is where the name came from, to wild otters. Because the otters are out in Monterey Bay, and they were endangered at one point. And there's been a lot of conservation work gone into bringing back the wild otters. And the idea came to them when they were just watching these otters play out in the bay a few years ago. And so for every piece that they sell, they donate $1 to the wild otter conservation, which I think is amazing. But the whole branding, their presentation, like you can see behind my voice now, I've filmed the actual gift box. Quality, solid, beautiful typography when you open it, silver writing. Then you've got this gorgeous velour pouch, which is where the bracelet sits in, or the necklace. And when they arrived, it was all safely packaged. Obviously, it's come from America. So I was super impressed. And the quality of the gift cards that are inside and any sort of promotional cards they've got in there, again, 100% quality. They've got amazing reviews. If you go and look them up, they've got amazing reviews. And it's like, I don't know, 9.5 out of 10 or something over many, many sales. And then you've got these. You get these that come into each set that you've bought, and it tells you what gemstone it is or what crystal it is. So this is the black tourmaline, and it says, I am safe and protected. This is a AAA grade. And if I put my glasses on, the intention is for protection. And the zodiac signs are Scorpio, Capricorn, Sagittarius, Libra. Well, I'm Scorpio with no sting. And the chakra is the root, which is exactly what I need right now. The lapis lazuli is wisdom and intuition, absolutely. And then the labradorite is also intuition. So it's third eye, crown, third eye, throat, and root, which is all perfect for me. I mean, colour-wise, I would normally have some more pastel-y, pinky, greeny type things. However, these are perfect for what I need right now. So go and check them out. It's otterspirit.com. Gorgeous little company, beautiful branding, beautiful photographs, quality gifts. So if you're looking for a quality, something a bit different for a friend or a loved one or whatever, or for yourself, go and check them out. They're gorgeous. Well, hello, lovely listeners, and welcome viewers. Today, I am very excited and intimidated, I have to be honest. We have the wonderful Sasha Stone. Sasha, I think one of the first things I saw with Sasha was an interview with Bibi Bacchus. That's the right name, I think. The lady that believes she claimed that she tapped into a Kescavi trust and all of that. Sasha, I mean, has done so much. You were in a rock band singer in the 90s called Stone. I used to be in a rock band myself and still do some stuff now. I mean, you've done so much. Like, I was looking back, it's just shed loads. I don't know how you sleep. So you're very much a promoter of intercultural, interfaith initiatives. and education. You're all about human rights, abuses against humanity, protecting the innovators and the scientists and the doctors, which is all amazing. You were an executive producer in 2009 of the United Nations, and people have got quite an opinion of the United Nations these days. So I don't know what your experience was in there. 2013 Newearth project, which is all about a self-determining society, which is what we all want. We all just want to be left alone to live our life without being governed by psychopaths. And that was obviously over in Bali. You did the International Tribunal for Natural Justice. And this was in 2015 in Westminster Central Hall in London, which is, when I saw that, I was like, oof, because Westminster has got some bad vibes around it. But it mentions the 800th anniversary of the signing of the Magna Carta. And in this country, I'm very much in the courts myself as a bit of a rebel, if you like. And the lower courts here are very corrupt, and it's nothing to do with common law. It's all about admiralty law. So I was like, oh, quite like to hear a little bit more about that. But obviously it's all about natural justice, which again is what we all want, but it's quite a slog to even get that recognized. And I think it's definitely worse in this country than it is in America, for example. 2018, human trafficking, child sex abuse. You launched this judicial inquiry into that with virtual courts around the world. Also into the weaponization of the biosphere. You had a historic gathering, which I'm sure I saw on YouTube, Kings of Indonesia, all about interfaith and intercultural. And that was the festival you had in 2019. 2021, Fauci, who's very much in the focus right now as well. And you had some, you've just been on the stage with some amazing people, outspoken people that have obviously been censored. And you're all about, your knowledge is incredible. And I saw something recently where you said you haven't read a book. I think it was 1997. I think it was 1st of August, 1997. I remember that. And I'm like, shit, how does he know all this stuff? If he stopped reading, and I get that you're around and you're meeting and you're doing amazing gigs and speaking and meeting some incredible people. How do you get, you're all about consciousness and evolving and humanity and bringing us together. And I know you're trying to build your own micronations and you want your own currency.
Well, stop. I'm not trying to do anything.
Sorry, you are. Sorry. Yeah. Apologies. So for me, it's like, I do feel intimidated having you on. I've got to be honest, because your breadth of knowledge is incredible. But I just love what you stand for. And I love the last interviews that I saw with you. So welcome anyway, Sasha.
Thank you. Well, let me just first try and address some of the backstory there. The reason why people are disfavorable toward the United Nations is probably because of me, because I'm one of the original so-called whistleblowers. So in the first instance, but I've said this 1,000 times on 1,000 interviews over many, many years, is that I hacked into the United Nations. Yes, they came to me. Yes, they asked me to come in and help sex up the agenda. I said no. They came again. I said no. I was lobbied for about 6 months, and eventually I fell victim to hubris and thought, well, maybe I can make a difference and change the fabric of what's going on inside that abominable organization. It's always been an abomination. The charter was written by good humans, but they were co-opted. And it was always a tool for the globalists. But in coming into the UN, I refused a salary. I did accept the title of Director General in the intergovernmental sector, and I did take on the function of executive producer of the so-called Millennium Development Goals, which I was always against in the first instance, because they were again a globalist agenda. But being in and having a lot of good people in that institution, many of whom said to me, please come in and help help us from the outside. So that was kind of the exchange going on. You have to remember that in governments and in banks and in the high street, in the military, in the intelligence community, in all sectors, there are good people trapped in bad systems. And that really describes our civilizational matrix. Is most people are decent people, but they have to conform to the common wheel. And that's been the problem. So how do we break that model and redistribute the love, redistribute the value, redistribute the commonwealth? That becomes the thing that interests me the most. Things like choosing Westminster Central Hall. I've always chosen Babylon to actually stage my events. It's fucking dangerous to do that, but it's the right thing to do. If you're wanting to undo the Babylonian dream spell, you have to go back to where the spells were cast and you have to do the magic there. That was also my reason for going to the United Nations. I'm well aware of the black meteorite in the basement and the witchcraft that is connected to that, in the same way that the witchcraft in CERN, the Superhadron Collider, this witchcraft is connected to the Vatican. It's connected to the Crown of England. Witchcraft and that kind of black magic actually underscores pretty much the entire civilizational basement, the story in the basement, which is Canaanite ritualism, blood sacrifice, sacrifice of innocence, harvest of humanity. So that's the story that I speak about. That's why I conducted and hosted the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into human trafficking and child sex abuse. Now, that human trafficking, child sex abuse is just a polite way of saying ritual sacrifice.
Yeah.
And ritual satanic abuse, because that's what's going on. But then we're all being ritually satanically abused by mainstream media, by mainstream academia, by the complete fuckery of the status quo, where we're all forced and drip-fed the kind of myopic dystopian bullshit that comes out of the mainframe. Everywhere you look, every goddamn magazine cover, every goddamn billboard, every goddamn proclamation coming out of the airwaves on radio stations or on television or in Netflix, it's all part of the same godless propaganda, until one fine day you realize that you are the Atman, you are the one who can determine the outcome, provided you step into that full sovereignty and autonomy and step back from volunteering, offering yourself up for sacrifice. That's when the light switch goes on. So for me, all my work is about how to inspire that light switch to go on within each of us, because I recognize that is the true commonwealth, is the degree to which we can collectively awaken from within the dream, turn the lights on, and begin to then steer, using our imagination, the outcome. So that's essentially it. But please understand, the United Nations and Westminster Central Hall, and when I've done things that, I've attended Nobel summits at the Vatican, I move amongst those echelon. I always have done, not afraid to do so. And I command a certain level of respect at that level now, because I've survived the silver bullets, and because I've walked in a straight line, and because I do wear the armor of God. And that is clear to anyone who meets me and sits down and talks to me. The matter of not having read a single book since 1997, the 1st of August, is entirely true. I've never read a book. I mean, in my suitcase here, I have books. I have books dedicated to me. I'm asked to write forwards to books. I'm just writing one of the forwards to Dr. Charlie Ward's book right now, which I'm honored to do. But I've never read a book. I've not read his book. I don't read because I am at a point, and I've been at a point for a long time, where I understand the spell binding in words, sigils, totems. I'm not interested myself in learning from anything other than the field, the universal field, the akashic, so to speak. One. Secondly, it's there. That is the immanent template of all knowledge. It's all contained within the quantum. That's a fact. That's not a nice hippy-dippy idea. It's a fact. And if you breathe into your system, if you surrender your idea of knowing, of knowledge, and know that you know nothing, but be open, completely open to all possibility. You're able to bring it in. You're able to transcode the information matrix into your system. That is a fact. I'm a living testament to that. Now, the business of white papers and scientific papers and mathematics, yes, I do read that stuff.
Yeah.
So I do read executive presidential orders, for instance, I have done for years, whether it's coming from Putin or coming from Donald Trump. I'm curious about the syntax being deployed because I believe that these are immensely powerful archetypal figures, and their syntax, even if it's written for them by script writers, is very, very important to decode. And so I have a fascination for that. Science papers as well, obviously. I'm very much involved in incubating technology and science, so I have no choice but to read that bullshit. And mathematics, I'm fascinated by. I just spent, a night together with Robert Edward Grant a few days ago in Laguna Beach. And again, had I not understood the premise of advanced mathematics and geometry, the 7 hours spent between he and I would have been very, very tedious indeed. I have a fascination for that stuff, but outside of that, don't need to read, don't want to read, and I don't believe I ever will read again. Having said that, I have to caveat by saying that I did read a hell of a lot when I was younger. And certainly by the age of 28, 29, I had read everything. I mean, I read all the Russian classics, and I read all the English classics, and I read voraciously. And the very last book I read was given to me by Prince Ali bin Al Hussein from Jordan, who was a beloved friend of mine. And he gave me a book. He said, if there's one book you read in this world, it's got to be this. It was Lermontov. He bought it for me and gave it to me. It was Lermontov, A Hero of Our Time. And I read that book. And it was absolutely perfect. It was a perfect sign-off for me to read Lermontov. And Lermontov only ever wrote one book, as I understand it, and that was it. But no, I don't feel the need to read anymore. I feel the need to be a living capacitor for knowledge and for wisdom. Yeah, I mean, I draw a distinction between data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Yeah.
Can I ask, obviously you're from Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, and you were in a rock band, and you say you've never drank or taken drugs and that sort of thing, which is quite unusual in the rock world.
Yeah.
Were you always like this? I mean, obviously you've been a voracious reader from a very young age, so I'm thinking the answer is yes. But in terms of people's perspective of Hollywood, the music industry, all of that sort of stuff, versus who you are and what you do now, are two very different things. Did you have like an epiphany one day, or was this is this Sasha that we see now always the Sasha, but just was creative through music for a short time and then changed?
Well, music came to me as an inspiration overnight. I've spoken about this to my own audience. I had an epiphany with angelic beings, I guess you would call it, one fine day in Cologne in Germany. And in the middle of the afternoon, I was traveling with my master at the time and as a scholar of the esoteric sciences. And I did have an epiphany, and it was a very real and palpable experience, the most real and palpable experience I think I ever had in my life. And it imbued me with an absolute sense of integration between the heavenly spheres and the temporal spheres. And it must have lasted 2 or 3 hours, maybe, the experience, but it was full-bodied with angelic beings. And I was imprinted that afternoon with I guess, some kind of coding or braiding, which really impressed me with an innate knowledge or knowing of what I would loosely refer to as the immanent flame of the divine template. So I became painfully aware that after that experience of the fact that I am the walking temple, I am the temple, and that the I am in that sense is provided it knows itself and provided it is true to itself, which is where my whole pure truth and right action credo comes in. You are able to increasingly become a capacitor for your own divinity, your relationship to the divine, which happens to be the same relationship to the divine that we all share. So that's the immanent piece. That is a beautiful reckoning to come to at a young age. And I was very blessed to have done so. And it did imprint me with, I guess, with kind of logos, with the word in that sense, and an understanding that if you, and that corresponded incidentally with, the time when I stopped, I stopped adulating anything outside. I stopped revering or worshiping or looking for a path, trying to, get there, because I recognized that it was a torus. It was, everything was moving back into immanence, and provided one was in that state of witness and that state of grace, you have access to the entire field. And that was an incredible blessing to have at a very young age, and that served me ever since. And I've been through some very grisly trials and very grisly experiences in life, which have borne out the fact that when we are in a state of inner witness and grace, we activate the armor of God, and we're fully protected in the temporal realm. So it becomes a self-writing, self-fulfilling, self-revealing phenomenon to be in that state of grace. And honestly, all of the work that I do in this world is connected to inspiring that. So sobriety, to answer your question, becomes integral to that function of becoming aligned with one's own genius, so to speak, with one's own superluminal state of being. We all know when we shut our eyes in a beautiful moment and we just reflect on the business of being, each of us feel surrounded by grace. Every single one of us can feel that inner peace. And that to then bring that cloak into one's expression, to allow it to land fully, is to step outside of the trial of separation, or move beyond, I should say, transmute the trial of separation into the I am. And the I am, the witness, says everything is perfect, always, in all ways. Every single thing that manifests in front of me, even if it's harsh, even if it's awful, even if it's terrifying, is perfect, always, in all ways. But stay aligned to that inner truth. So the sobriety thing becomes the only real golden thread of Ariadne, the one that takes us back out of the labyrinth that we've led ourselves into, back out to the sunlight. That golden thread of Ariadne becomes sobriety, and sobriety becomes that golden thread. So for me, that was non-negotiable, absolutely non-negotiable. And I'm pleased that at my ripe age, I have never drunk and I've never taken any drugs. Having said that, I mean, I'm a derelict. I mean, I drink Coca-Cola. I smoke cigarettes, albeit organic, rolled up with hemp, this, that, and the other. I'm very kind of clinical about that, but I do smoke. And I'll stop for a year at a time, 2 years at a time, and then I'll smoke again. So I love tobacco. I understand what addiction is. I'm not chaste in that sense. I'm not pure and chaste in that sense. But I do understand that the distinction between organic molecules, which is a good home brewed beer, or a beautiful fermented wine, or a honey wine, or or a natural tobacco, is a beautiful thing to some great extent. Psilocybin, and mushrooms, and also ayahuasca, Santa Daime, and so on. Yes, I have a reverence, even Cambo to some extent, but I've also seen the utter destructivity of drugs. I'm living through the back end, the echo right now of devastation, of having been deeply in love with somebody who's connected deeply to substances and to ceremonialism and to the false light mask that brings about. So I've lived it viscerally, and I understand the dynamics of it. And I understand that it's sucking like a fucking cosmic vacuum so many younger people into a complete psycho-spiritual dystopian tailspin. And they can't see it because they're drunk on spiritual certainty based on the epiphanies that they're having, which are not organic epiphanies. They are synthetic epiphanies. And a synthetic epiphany is an incredibly dangerous thing. It brings you to the gnarly um, claws of the devil incarnate. It really does. It throws you at the feet of the devil, and the conjuring the chemical demon is about the worst possible thing anyone can do in this world. It's an act beyond murdering someone else physically, because it brings about such destructivity of your own life. It destroys the life and the peace and the heart of those who love you. It renders your lives unlivable and part of a feedback loop of complete abomination and desecration of the temple of truth, the temple of love, the temple of life. So I've seen how synthetic molecules, drugs, so to speak, and alcohol is also desperately responsible for this desecration of the fabric of the of family, of the social fabric. So it is what it is. We can see it. Those of us who are sober can see it, and we try and stand on the side and try to reach in to retrieve the ones that we love. But there's so much you can do, and for me, sobriety again is the golden thread of Ariadne, and I would never let that go, not for one moment.
Yeah, that's amazing. I am a lover of red wine, and it is my Achilles heel. Although I'm about to abstain for, I'm doing some homeopathy remedies and that kind of thing. So I'm going to abstain for a bit, and treat my body as it needs to be treated right now, because it's been under stress for quite some time. So thank you for sharing that. That hit home. So in terms of, could you answer this question? You might not be able to. What is it that drives you? Because I know how incredibly busy you are. You're here, there, and everywhere, all around the world. One of the interviews I watched, you said you have many homes around the world. What is it, do you think, if there was one thing that drives you to keep being, keep showing up, keep doing, keep going?
I've not stopped long enough to think about that, but I really appreciate the question. Thank you for it. So let me just self-reflect. In the first instance, it sounds very flamboyant, saying homes all around the world. So I've got one palace, and that's in Bali. It's famous. My home in Bali is an exquisite place. I've not been for a year and a half. That should give you an idea of how much importance I place in living in indulgence. I just haven't been home for over a year and a half. Haven't had the time. I haven't been able to. I miss my dogs crazy. I miss my staff, and I've got a lot of people out there on payroll, like 34 or 35 people, and I think they all think I'm dead by now. But I will go back. I'm heading back fairly soon. I've been in Mexico for the last 6 months. I positioned myself in Central America for personal reasons, and have remained here. Jumping in and out of the United States to attend expos and conferences. For me, Middle America is the most important place in the world in terms of transmission, getting that feedback and getting that energy across. But most of my work now is focused on Africa, and I'm heading there shortly, and I'll be spending a hell of a lot more time there. In the last 2 years, I spent a lot of time in Africa, but for the last 6 months, haven't got back there. We've been setting up our banking platform, our financial services platform, a whole new paradigmatic platform for resetting the playing field. Let's just leave it at that. I'm very, very involved in commodities right now, commodities trading and brokerage. That's big focus right now. I'd say it's 75% of the focus, because I'm focused now on consolidating the wealth behind the system that we've created, so that as we move from 2026 into 2027, we're fully collateralized and backed with real world assets and with real stuff in the basement. So moving beyond an economics model, which is based on war economy and scarcity economics, the model which we've been engineering and creating and are now launching is based on true cost economics and on what I call a 0-point economy, which means you have to have a real world asset backed everything. So nothing is an idea like Bitcoin, just backed up by scarcity and by fantasy, which is incredibly dangerous and also remarkably stupid as well. for any civilization to choose to peg itself and its welfare to a totem, an idea, which is a vacuum. It has nothing behind it. That's as insane as you can get. So although one understands why crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain are the thing, one gets all of that nonsense. And to some great extent, our new X-Earth platform plays into that. We have our own crypto bank, we have our own crypto exchange, and it's and treasury, but we're also turning on later this year the fiat bank. But again, economics is a playground. I find it distasteful. I've never enjoyed money or finance or economics. I see money as a utility. I see it as being blood in an arterial system that should be moving and flowing the whole time. You should never sit on it. It creates an aneurysm or a blood clot in the system if you stockpile money, which is exactly what the black nobility and the central bankster motherfuckers are. They are blood clots. That's all they are. They are literally heart attacks. In Basel, Switzerland, in the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank and the IMF and so on. They are. It's a diabolical travesty against God's law, which is to keep moving, keep flowing, keep affirming, keep uplifting, keep spread the love, spread the commonwealth, allow the blood to reach all the moving parts so we don't become diabetic and limbs start atrophying and having to be hacked off. That's how sick we are as a civilization, because we don't understand economics. We don't understand social ecology or social economy, because we're predicated on fear and scarcity, and which is all connected to the idea of time, that we're running out of shit and we're running out of time, we're running out of water, we're running out of peak oil, running out of, oxygen, running out of, no, we're not running out of anything, you moron. You're just being, sucking at the tit of Baphomet in repeating that kind of nonsense. That's stuff that's put out there as part of a scarcity driven paradigm. And I mean, I'm talking all the time to heady academics and ministers and leaders who buy into the whole climate change bullshit. They buy into the scarcity model of reality, and like, oh, we're running out of time, we're overpopulated. And how many times I have to reset that stupid narrative, with very intelligent people with PhDs, people who are far more educated than I am, but know absolutely fuck all about the real status quo. Because again, they're just in a repetition feedback loop of propaganda. And one understands how that plays forward. But khalas, baby, enough. Let's just start to see with our own eyes. How is the sky looking? Pretty damn good to me. What's the quality of light in the world? It is exquisite. The emergence of this new geometry of light is everything. It's infusing and suffusing us with this grace of God. This cleansing, this magic wand is about to, cover the breadth of this plane of existence. But so many of us are still stricken with this notion of scarcity and locked into fear complex that we can't even see and behold the revelation as it's happening. So for me, the bifurcation is all about the degree to which you or I can actually be in a state of witness in the here and now and actually see with our eyes and palpably feel with our hands and our hearts what reality really is. And to my mind, it's all good, all of it.
Amazing. So before we started recording, you mentioned Africa. And I remember, so years ago, I was in the rat race, trying to find the way out of the rat race in whatever that looked like. And I got into property and I started going to these seminars, and there was a guy called JT Fox. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. And he was all about Africa. Africa is the forgotten land, and this is where we can start building and create wealth from, because they've been screwed over. Now, I'm not sure about the motivation from JT Fox, whether he was a good guy or not. But also more recently, I don't know if you've ever heard of the World Marshall Authority, but they've been doing a lot of work in Africa with princes, kings, etc., in terms of obviously improving communities, projects, and all the rest of it. And you mentioned before we started recording how we are being forced back to Africa, which you say is like the original land, for want of a better word. It's been a sacrificial area. I mean, obviously we've seen what's gone on over the decades. I don't know, probably 1% of it. But you're saying energetically we're being forced back there. Can you talk into that and what you mean by all of that?
Well, I referred to Africa in that sense as paradise lost. So the kind of primordial, primeval genesis point of humankind, more or less popularly stems from the so-called dark continent, the womb of the dark mother Africa, the great undiscovered. Also representative, the continent is representative of the unconscious mind of humanity, that has not yet been fully revealed to the sun, to the light, so to speak. So it is this cauldron, this incredible cauldron of creation in that sense. And really, at an archetypal level, the way I describe Africa is the last 500 years. It's been the cornerstone of the collateral behind the global economy, but the economy has been owned and controlled and contained by the colonial powers, by the globalist powers. Obviously, we all know that the Portuguese and the English and the Dutch, essentially, also the Germanian and others, but essentially the English and the Dutch and the Portuguese did move into Africa under the papal banners through the doctrine of discovery and lay claim to the land for themselves and heisted the land, stole the gold, and genocided essentially the good peoples of Africa. So that's a 500-year sacrifice of innocence. And it's that theft and that heisting of the land and the commodities, the gold essentially of Africa, that is the great calamity, because the De Beers and the Rothschild, the De Beers, the Oppenheimers, they all went again down the spine of Africa. Cecil John Rhodes being the kind of core progenitor of that abomination under the mark of Queen Elizabeth, forgive me, Queen Victoria. That was essentially the siege that occurred, and it was diamonds and gold, everything else in between. And that became the rudiment of the cornerstone of the emergence of inordinate amounts of wealth to the colonial powers. So all of those nations were then built up on the bedrock of African stolen goods. And that abomination, it needs to be addressed. And that's exactly the focus now of me and of the New Earth Project. And the New Earth Africa Initiative is all about redressing that imbalance at a very, very broad scale. And I'm operating, obviously, dealing at head of state, cabinet, and royal institution level. So I'm not sure about this Marshall Project. They couldn't have done that much of a good job, respectfully, because Africa is a fucking calamity still. And the inequality is brutal. And that will be redressed, and that's about to be redressed. So I addressed 54 kings of Africa 2 weeks ago in on our platform. 54 of the kings assembled and queens assembled, and we addressed them. I spoke. We had about a 2-hour meeting. It was very, very moving and stirring. It's not the first collective meeting with kings. We're dealing, I think, with 280 odd kings and queens and sovereign kingdoms of Southern Africa alone right now, with our New Earth platform. So again, we're not trying to do anything. That's why I always slap anyone down and says, you're trying to do something. No, we've got to stop that syntax and check the language. No, we're not trying to do anything. I didn't try to put on judicial commissions of inquiry. I dodged silver bullets and masked gunmen at my home at 3:00 in the morning. Thankfully, redeemed by some special ops guys at that particular occasion on the night before the Westminster seating. But the point being, I've been through dangerous shit, even setting up this banking system and this financial system. The death threat have been unbelievable. The black notices coming in, threatening all of our team members. And if you don't pull the source code within 72 hours, you and your families are terrible threats. Black notices coming to us and popping up on the screens across the board on both sides of the Atlantic. That's scary stuff when it happens, if you are predisposed to buying into that shit. So, this was happened a few months ago, 3 or 4 months ago. And, first thing my team are asking, well, what do we do? How should we handle this? And we're having like crisis meetings, like, oh my God, we're all being sent these black notices, and they're threatening basically that if we don't dismantle the entire system and pull the source codes, we are all in serious trouble. And the black helicopters are coming in to get us, and we're going to be locked up for life and or worse. And our families are being exposed also. Feverish meetings for 2 or 3 days. How do we address this stuff? And then I said simply, all respond, go fuck yourself. Send those notices back to sender all at the same time. Go fuck yourself. Those are those are the words, perfect words, English language. And that's what we did. Just responded, go fuck yourself, all at the same time to those notices. Now, that ended the nonsense, because that's David and Goliath stuff. Yeah, the threat is real. Yeah, it's an existential threat. Yes, they've got jackals and guns and black helicopters. So what? So what? Again, the knowing and the being of the Atman, of you in the now, in the geometry of your life. I am the one who determines what happens to this body temple. I am not subject to an extraneous external force. Yes, to God, but God is me. I am God. It is immanent. The moment of my death will be known to me. I will see it in absolute alacrity. It will reveal itself to me. There will be a deep sense of knowing, because my being and my knowing are contained into the same quanta. And again, this is where our power is. And when we realize that temporal power is not a kingship, it is not a throne, it is not an empire, it is not a battalion in tanks and cavalry, it is not cannon and thermonuclear warheads, it is not a large cock that you swing around your head. Power is something very different from all of that. Power is knowing in the being, and the being in the knowing, in the now. And knowing that I am the God's eyeball. I am the immanent. I am the flame of the Godhead in the temporal world. And I come to redeem. I come to restore. I come to remedy. I come to reconcile. That is what our function is, each of us, as angelic indigo beings. Once we have shed that aspect of the shade or the contrast, the demon that we all carry. We're all born with the demon in the blood. All of us are cross-fertilized and transfected by, the Zeta, Reticulan, Draco, Reptilian, Syrian, Orion, Venusian, all these trickster elements cascading into the human genome. We are a nesting of, a braiding of the cosmogenetics. The galactic genome is nested perfectly in me, in the now. But I transmute and transcend and transmute and transmogrify those lower elements by being in this state of grace. And the more we can remain in that crucible, in that crucifix of right action, pure truth in the living moment, right here, right now. Nothing else matters, Mel. This is the only conversation in the universe that matters right now. And I'm fully, fully imbued in it. This is the dance, to be fully present, fully actualized, and not filtering, not hiding, and not masking, and not masking oneself from oneself, but to be able to burn in the flame of pure truth is a beautiful thing, purifying thing. And it also activates our genius again. So we become conduit, we become open conduit to source. And there's a limitless flow. And everything that comes out of us is an affirmation. Everything that comes out of us becomes right action, becomes creative, becomes expansive, becomes healing by extension. And that's living life.
Wow. I know that a lot of people are struggling right now. The viewers, a lot of the viewers of my channel, they are, actively rebelling or wanting to rebel. Maybe that fear is still gripping them. You talked about the go fuck yourself. That takes guts. But I know what you're saying is when you know who you are and all of that stuff is really irrelevant, then you feel that power,
Yes.
and the
Because
fear goes.
know
Yeah.
it. You know it. Yeah. Yeah. It's
So,
more than feeling. Again, it's knowing.
it's
The
knowing.
knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of people are still stuck in the mud, still stuck in the fear. Then there are those that I would probably class myself as somewhere in between. You know, I've been on my journey a long time. I have my deep knowing. I am challenging the system. It's scary at times. I'm getting
Yes.
strong. I'm getting stronger and losing more of the fear, and things are evolving, but it's still scary. So, and I still believe, you know, I believe, yeah, I'm sovereign. And then there are days where I'm like, oh shit, you know, because there's because there's people relying on me, right? And if I go down, and if these walls go down, you know, it's going to affect them, you know, and I have all of these crazy.
Not your problem.
Hmm.
Not your problem. That is not your problem. What if and what could is not your problem. And don't put yourself into the what ifs. Don't ever live by what if. That is really wrong action. It's understandable. It's visceral. I understand it, but do not allow yourself to project into the what if land. What if land is unicorn land. Real unicorns exist, but those kind of unicorns don't exist. Don't position yourself worrying about what might occur. And no, just be fully, again, immanent in the present, in the now. Because if you actualize in the living moment, you're always going to take the path of least resistance to the highest outcome. But you can only take the path of least resistance to the highest outcome if you are fully actualized in the moment. And if you are projecting what if, you're not in the moment. You're living here and you're casting the net forward into fear land, into what if land. And so if you're transfecting the living witness with fear, with projection, with what if, you are literally splitting the infinitive. And if you do that, you are not in coherence. And therefore, you are flipping a coin. You might land on your feet, you might not. Now, how about this? How about you know you're going to land on your feet? How about living in that state of grace where the what if land doesn't exist? You never need to worry about it because you are always in the immanent flow of doing the right action right here, right now. And you know that that is where the armor of God activates. And therefore, by extension, family, friends, circle are protected as a function of your state of witness. There you go.
That sounds nice.
Mm.
That sounds good. Okay. So to go back to Africa and you saying the energy's leading us back there, what do you envisage, if you do envisage, because you're working to build these nations, and I know it's not just in Africa. I think you've got one near Nashville, Tennessee, somewhere I've always wanted to go as a music lover. What is this African energy that you speak of, and is it something that you will see in this lifetime in terms of what you're creating right now?
Yeah.
You know, it is.
Great question. Yes, it'll be within the next 3 to 5 years. They'll all become very palpable. So yes, right now it's still early days. We're involved in preemptive multilateral treaty discussions. So it's about how do we get nation states on the African continent, essentially, and amongst the small island states, to agree to becoming signatory to a treaty event that invites these nations to allow a secession, the seceding of very small amounts of land within their corporation umbrella. So let's say a country has 1 million square hectares. We want 1,000 square hectares in that, which is such an absurdly small amount. But we want that piece of land to be seceded from the corporation because the corporation is illegitimate. It's illicit. That's the false light jurisdiction. That is the corporation masquerading as government. And we need to secede the land, rather like we begun the process in Tennessee last year and the year before. No, forgive me, last year we did the consecration proclamation event, and this year cut the ribbon on the master plan. So it's now rolling forward. But that's the land that we bought, New Earth, with a family of 50 or 60 people, and taking the land back to the Genesis treaties of the Cherokee Nation, essentially, and cleansing the soil from the war powers, from the false light jurisdiction and treaties and covenants of the Vatican, Washington, D.C., the local municipalities, and all this fuckery that goes on where these pen pushers and bureaucrats think that they own the land and can tell you what to do and what can't do. No, they can't. They do, and they enforce it with guns and badges, but they're all breaking law. So when you understand the Constitution, let's not get into that right now, but the point is that's the push-pull. That's where the battleground zero is, between the false light jurisdiction of corporations masquerading as governments and the real people, living men and women of the living soil. So that's the connection. Now, the breach point is the grace of God. So the degree to which we can walk as Daniel into the lion's den, holding nothing but pure truth, not a phalanx of lawyers, pure truth, right action, armor of God, walk straight into the lion's den. That's the point here, that I'm trying to inspire, to inspire that shift point in people of Middle America and all around the world. Now, in Africa, it's different because to a greater extent, one can negotiate these things with a government, with a parliament, and I've addressed cabinets and parliaments, and kings. That's fairly straightforward, and we're in the process of that right now. So the rest of this year is really pre-negotiations of the multilateral treaty event. Next year becomes the multilateral treaty event. Signatories stepping up. That's preemptively been set up already, and then bang, bang, bang. We've got the flow, the money, and the wealth, our own commonwealth being built up with our own commodities trading and our own coin, the NXE coin, which launches. We haven't decided if we're pushing that out publicly later this year or first quarter of next year. But either way, I'm anticipating it's going to go vertical because of the nature of it, and that it's backed by such substance. And that will then become the flow of the money, so to speak, that then builds out the infrastructure of those micronations very, very quickly in rapid succession. It's a cookie cutter syndicate model, and it integrates industrial hemp as the premise of so much of the economy. And obviously a complete remediation of air, water, and soil through new forms of agriculture, introducing also breakthrough technology innovation, which by the grace of God we have access to, and we're also incubating internally. So bringing those technology solutions in as well becomes part of the horse trading that one can do with those kingdoms, those even within the governments. One can go in with breakthrough technology and say, well, hey, we can bring in a breakthrough energy system. We'll take on a power purchase agreement for, $500 million over the next 3 years or whatever. That then becomes a security, becomes paper which works within the system that we've created to be able to finance forward the manifestation of these micronations. So they're not just ideas. We've set the template for the last 13 years since I launched the New Earth project. We've been creating the blueprints and the templates and trying different models, many of which have failed. And then I finally got to a very grand position. I thought, no, we've got to go full tilt. We have to be the bank. We can't wait on microfinancing. We can't crowdfund this stuff. I tried. You have investors coming forward for something, then they fall out with each other, then they want to leave, and then then all you're doing is money management and trying to manage the distress. And that's we got caught in the crossfire of that recently in the last 2 years. I'm thinking, never fucking again is that going to happen with the New Earth, ever. I will never take coin from people because it's too much goes into having to manage expectations of people. So we have to create the bank. And that's what we've spent the last 2 years doing. By the grace of God, it's now underway. So very exciting. If we become the tribunal, our own jurisdiction, we are what we are, operating as an ecclesiastical universal trust superstructure. So we have jurisdiction, and we have the fellowship, we have the technologies, and we are now the bank as well. Certainly by the close of this year, we will be in full rigor as the bank. So I think we checked all the boxes, and that 2027 becomes, again, vertical takeoff. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to withhold. A lot of people would say, you shouldn't be saying what you're doing. Why? What am I afraid of? Am I afraid of the cabal? afraid of the deep state. I partied with these people. I've moved amongst them. I'm not afraid of these people or their vicious calculus. I have a different calculus. And this calculus is pure truth and right action and armor of God. And this is our time now, Mel, what to say? The meek are inheriting the earth. That's what this whole last, couple of weeks has been about. The Barbeau basket of 19th, 20th, and 21st of July this year was the activation astrologically of this cornucopia of plenty that now turns around and offers up the yield to the meek to inherit the earth. So everything's shifted now in our favor, but we must seize the day and be bold.
So creating your own bank, pretty incredible, and that's going to be ready by the end of the year.
Well, the bank is already, the bank, as I said, we have the crypto bank is up and running, the exchange is up and running, treasury is up and running, the commodities is up and running. That's all the new newearth.com platform. Anyone can go and check it out. But we're not making a lot of noise about it. We also launched the Ghost Wallet, which is our own way beyond normal cold storage for crypto. So you're not part of the system. The banks cannot see you. The governments cannot see you. Once you're in our economy, our universe, and we can allocate right now a MasterCard or a Visa card to you. Anyone. It's the new Earth MasterCard and Visa cards. It's lower interest rates than anyone else is going to likely to offer you. And you can start tapping and paying with that for everything that you need in life. And that the transaction fees, rather than going to the banks, are now going to you, back into your Ghost Wallet. That's kind of sensible. That makes sense. And that's part of our spreading the Commonwealth. So people are slow on the uptake in this, and I'm not even bothering to promote it anymore through social media because people are just too dim to get it, apparently, because for 3 months I was screaming about it, and, with some of my influencer friends trying to say, hey, people, start to use the new Earth platform, start to use the Ghost Wallet, start to learn about it, start to use the tap and pay with our system, because you're literally paying money into your wallet every time you tap and pay. And if you bring 50 people or 150 people under you, every time they tap and pay, you're making a micro dividend from their transactions. So you can have a passive income within 3 months. Anyone can do that. This is a phenomenon that we've unleashed through the new Earth platform and our Ghost Wallet. But I'm not wasting much more of my time proselytizing this to people. They'll get it eventually. Organically, it'll take off. But it's a beautiful system. It's closed loop. It's fully in compliance with the Saturnian status quo, but it is a means by which the meek can inherit the earth.
Yeah. Did you ever, because the world that I'm sort of weaved in over the last 2-3 years involves the legal and lawful way of basically understanding how the finance, because you did an interview with G. Edward Griffin fairly recently, went up a couple of months ago, and obviously he's the creature of Jekyll Island.
He's not the creature of Jekyll Island.
No, he's not. He wrote the books. Sorry, you know what I meant. Yeah. And so this world that I'm sort of weaved in at the moment is his book was very much the influence for the findings that came out of it, and how the finance system really works, and how it was originally set up, in as much as money of substance was removed. Therefore, these promises to pay, the people should not be saddled with debt, right? And so therefore you can legally recoup your monies. Is that something you ever looked into? Because obviously you were talking about the funding and going out to crowdfunding or maybe venture capital, and you just didn't want to know, and it didn't pan out. That could be a way of funding, even though it's the fiat system, and even though it's all the stuff that we don't really like. You can legally get that fiat money and fund what you need to do to build the future that you're building. You've gone. I don't know why your volume's gone off. That's weird. Oh, has it come back?
Are you there?
Yep. Yeah, you come back.
So did you meet anyone who's done that, who's managed to do that?
Well, yeah, I work with a guy called Ian Clifford, who is Republic of Old Souls. Oh,
yeah, I know Ian Clifford. So has Ian Clifford done that?
Yeah, so there was a few that came through in 24 and 25. Then there's been untold sabotage and theft that he's had to rebuild again.
Right.
And it's all now basically coming through in the next 3 to 4 months.
Well, I've been involved since 2005, directly at one point as a trustee of the Dragons as it relates to redemption and the hereditary redemption. Are you there or are you frozen? On my screen,
No,
you
no,
frozen.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
You're visually frozen. I've been involved in that stuff. I'm very involved today. I'm just glancing at my telephone. We're involved in off-ledger stuff right now, my group. I've been involved in that stuff. Yes, to some great extent, it's always coming down the pike. It's always about to land. The redemption is about to occur. The Iraqi dinar, the Zim note, the redemption, the Gesara, Nasara, all of this stuff, the Jubilee. It's more or less true that we're likely to see that, but it's such an ambiguous and esoteric landscape. I'm done waiting for it. So I'm more interested now in, again, building forward what we know we can contain and control, and not waiting for a chariot to descend from the sky. So that's my position on all of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, perhaps when it comes through, I can let you know, and we can maybe talk offline.
I'll be one of the first people to know. My phone will light up. Believe me, the minute this stuff lands. I'm connected to the military, to the intelligence on 3 continents between Africa, Asia, and North America, and even Russia. I'm very, very, in that sense, connected and well informed. My network is second to none. But remember, I've been doing this form of high-end backroom diplomacy since 1999, 26 years. I've got a formidable network around the world. And so I'm up to speed on all of this stuff. I just, again, I don't hold out that much hope or faith in the near term, people being able to emancipate themselves through bells and whistles and paperwork. And that's not to say it's not entirely correct to pursue these methods. It's entirely appropriate to do so. And I'm very, very, I salute anyone who undertakes that path. But I at the same time suggest that one could be using some of that time to be in the ditch digging and planting turnips as well for your own economy. And that's where I prefer to place myself.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he is doing that. About the end vision is the Republic of Old Souls nations. Yeah. It's building out what you're doing as well. So in terms of if people want to be part of those micronations that you are physically building out now, can people just say, I want to be part of it? Or
no, I have no interest in recruiting people. I don't accept volunteers any longer. I'm not interested in volunteers. I don't want to be managing people's expectations any longer, or their dreams. I have no interest in it. I don't want money. I don't want investors. I want everyone to stay away. And we're building what we're building, and we will unveil once it's built. Literally that. We will literally unveil once it's built. The micronations, I'm planning on financing them internally, and then negotiating golden passports and golden visas and special dispensations for people who join the New Earth. And put it this way, Mel, we'll unveil a web platform which invites people to literally come in through a kind of meta sphere. That's what we're looking to develop. And they will be able to come in and select themselves forward into a New Earth situation. But it won't be, contact this number and Martha will get back to you. That's not how we're doing it. It's an AI exchange where people can plug and play, input their data, exactly who they are, what skills they bring, what resources they bring. They can plug into the financial system. They can swing their pensions and their savings into the New Earth Bank, which will be backed up by gold in a real vault, in a real place where you can actually go and see and touch it. And you can get your own money back anytime you like, unlike any other fucking bank in the world. So that real economy that we're building will give the confidence to people to migrate into our financial system. And at that point, they'll be able to also see where the micronations are being developed around the world, and they'll be able to put their deposits down or put their positions forward using an automated, largely AI-controlled system. And this is the grace of, this is where AI becomes an absolute saving grace. And we would not be able to build out the new Earth without it. If you consider that it takes 5 to 7 years to build, a 25, 30 home development, from conception to realization. So, okay, well, that's 30 families taken care of. What about 3 billion?
Yeah.
So how do you anticipate we actually build out for millions, hundreds of millions of people? AI is how you do it. And using advanced technologies like 3D printing, using advanced material sciences like hemp-crete, which we'll be able to build out in 3 days, print 3 or 4 days, print a 4-bedroom luxury home, which now, because you've built it in a week, you've dropped the price down because you have locally farmed and processed hemp as your material, with everything, with the bricks and with the tiles and with everything, the pipes and everything fabricated out of locally produced, locally processed hemp. It means that you've knocked out 80% to 85% of the cost of those materials and of the construction itself, because it's all an articulated, integrated economy that you've created. And so now a $1 million home is available for less than $200,000. So that's how you do it. You do it by doing it. And there's not a single element that we've not looked at and studied within the New Earth blueprint and template. It's now ready for rollout. And that's where we find ourselves by the grace of God.
Amazing. And you said the next 3 to 5 years, you believe this will all be
without any question, within 3 years, I anticipate full-fledged a series of micronations around the world, inviting people in on golden visas, golden passports. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. So I'm conscious of the time. I know that you're waiting.
Yes, I do have a car picking me up in about 6 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. Truly. Thank you for everything you're doing. And I wish you all the very best. Not that you need it from me, but in terms of every endeavor that you're involved with and the amazing things that you're doing. If people want to find out more, is there a particular website they could go to look at or anything like that? No?
There's so many websites, like they'll just bump into me somewhere. I mean, sachastone.com probably is. I haven't looked in that website myself. I don't even know what it looks like, but I know we've got a website, sachastone.com, and I think that springboards people onto anywhere else. Anyone interested in the economic side of it, finance side, go to newearth.
Okay. Before I let you go, any pearls of wisdom to leave the viewers and listeners with?
Yes, go and reflect on everything I've said in this wonderful conversation with you.
Thank you. My dog started barking. I just want to give a shout out to Mark Steele. Thank you for the introduction. All right. Take care.